I remember
Very
my
funny
first
that-
Taco Bell.
I'm just now remembering when I was an intern at KRON, which was the NBC affiliate. It was my first internship, and I was so broke. You would get like $25 a day for being an intern, but like my parking tickets usually were more than the $25 a day.
Oh no.
Right. And where the the station is in San Francisco is near a variety of like it's near the Tenderloin, so it's anyway. But I used to, it was like, what can I eat that's almost free? And so I would get like a thing of rice and just like douse it in soy sauce and eat that with chopsticks. And like I remember the people that I was interning for would be like, "That's really unhealthy." And I'm like, "What's unhealthy about it? It fills me up. It was $2."
Yeah.
Could be worse. It could be a lot worse. It could have been like,
yeah.
just like ground up candy bars or something like that.
Cat food.
Worse. Yeah. I'm eating top ramen for breakfast, guys. This is a step up.
My dad used to go into restaurants when he was in the Navy in Florida and order tea and then take the ketchup, the salt, the pepper, and put it in the water instead of the tea and make soup.
Tomato soup.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that you learn being in the military, though, right? Like it's just like, how do you make instant soup with ketchup?
Yeah.
Right.
And then he went on to become a food scientist.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he created the diet drink Seago.
Wow.
Probably building on all of those years.
Wow. What does Seago taste like? How do you spell Seago?
Sego.
Okay.
It tasted kind of like slightly chocolate flavored chalky milk.
Oh, so my grandma.
But that sounds good.
My grandma.
It wasn't bad. We used to drink it as kids.
Was it carbonated?
No, it was like a milk drink.
I hate to break up this fascinating discussion.
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited about this milk drink situation. All right, but yeah, let's talk about technology.
We can talk more after the...
But one other thing, Annalee, just so you know, at the top of the rundown, occasionally you'll see me highlight colors. That's just basically color coding for Tom and Sarah to move forward. So red, move to the next topic. Orange is like, oh, you should start rapping.
Whoa.
And then gray is
very fancy spreadsheet stuff.
Yeah, that is very fancy.
And then I'll need control, Tom.
I'm giving you control right now, Roger Chang. Here you go. Okay. 3, 2.
Today's Tech News Show is brought to you by people like me. To learn more, visit dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Friday, November 17th from DTNS headquarters in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline at the Beach, I am Sarah Lane.
And I'm very excited to have back with us again, editor-at-large from Ars Technica and author of the book Autonomous, Annalee Newitz. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming back. And you guys at Ars Technica have been doing a great, cool thing called Ars Technica Live. And this week you were talking about encryption. So we're going to give you a little sneak peek about what's coming in the next video from you guys a little later in the show.
All right.
Let's start, though, with a few tech things you should know. Facebook rebranded its Mentions app. It's now called Facebook Creator, and it's all new. It's the Facebook Creator is the app they announced at VidCon in June. Creator includes a live creative kit. So the idea is they'll give you the ability to do intros and outros to your broadcasts. Also collects in one inbox all the Facebook, Instagram comments, all your Messenger comments, so you can look at them easier.
Kind of forgot about the Mentions app, to be honest.
Nobody ever mentions it.
EA has made another change in its Star Wars Battlefront 2 game right before official launch, temporarily removing in-game purchases of crystals. Using real money to buy crystals could allow people to get in-game credits, which otherwise had to be earned by gameplay.
EA's just throwing up its hands. They're like, yeah, fine, no crystals at all. Forget it.
Nobody gets them.
The nonprofit Global Cyber Alliance, a nonprofit organization founded by law enforcement and some research organizations, has announced a new independent DNS service called Quad9. because the DNS IP that you add is 9999. Google's is 888. This one's 9999. Free service launched in partnership with IBM and Packet Clearinghouse. It promises not to log users, and it will use info from 19 threat feeds to block malicious domains. Their eventual aim is to make this a sort of an internet standard, a de facto standard that all ISPs and services could use. Now, let's move on to some more top stories, Sarah.
Okay, Tom. Tesla unveiled its electric semi-truck. We heard about it. Now it's a reality. It has a range of 500 miles on a charge, capable of pulling 36,287 kilograms, the maximum allowed on U.S. roads. Wal-mart told CNBC it will be one of the first companies to test pilot the new semi-truck. Tesla also showed off a new high-end sports car with a range of 620 miles on a charge and 0 to 100 miles per hour in 4.2 seconds. No price or release date were announced for either vehicle, though.
This is one of the things that bugs me about Tesla. I love a lot of things about Tesla, but they make a big deal out of announcements. They're really good at it, but they don't give you any information. We don't know when this is coming. We don't know what the price is. They threw a sports car into this, when really an electric semi-truck is pretty significant on its own. So I was kind of happy when I saw Walmart saying we're going to test it, although they don't have any timeline for that from what I could tell either. At least this does give me some confidence that this is a real product that's going to hit the road sometime.
And companies actually are using these trucks now, right? There was a test in October from Embark, which was driving refrigerators out to Colorado.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think, interestingly, I guess trucks may turn out to be the killer app for autonomous driving.
I would think so, for autonomous driving particularly, not just electric. I mean, electric is actually a little harder because of the range and the power you need to pull things. So 500 miles is acceptable. It's really not what you want in a semi, but it's acceptable. But once you throw autonomy in there, which this Tesla truck also has a ton of, then it becomes really compelling, because that takes a lot of the pressure off drivers, and you can do the tandem things. I think Embark was doing that too. They've done that in Germany before as well. So yeah, this is pretty interesting. Apple's upcoming HomePod was originally slated for sale in December, but today the company says it'll miss the 2017 holiday shopping season, because HomePod is not going to be available until early 2018. Speculation as to why there's a delay is just speculation, but everybody thinks it's that Siri is making things hard somehow, that it's hard to get it to work the way they want, because it's a smart speaker. This is Apple's smart speaker.
Well, as a new owner of a smart speaker myself, and I've talked about this extensively, I still find the whole thing sort of amusing, sort of annoying, because half the time when I'm talking to somebody on the phone, or I don't know, talking to myself or talking to my cats, Alexa's like, what do you want? When I'm not talking to her at all. So if Apple wants that to be a more seamless experience, I could see why the company's like, let's make it better, because HomePod is going to be more expensive than a lot of the other stuff on offer that's comparable, right? That said, it's going to disappoint a lot of people that wanted this for the holidays.
I'll give Apple some credit, if it comes out and ends up being a good product, especially, for saying, you know what? Yeah, we could push product out the door and make a lot of money because it's holiday shopping season, but we are not satisfied with it, so we're not going to do that. I mean, we'll see. We'll see.
I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with the price point. If HomePod doesn't stand out as a drastically better speaker that people want to spend more money on, just because what Google has and what Amazon has, like, they're great sellers. It's not like they're not flying off shelves already. Apple doesn't want to have a speaker on offer that doesn't sell a lot of units. They want it to be above and beyond.
Yeah, and you get those little ones from Amazon and Google, right? So your only option with Apple is going to be the most expensive one.
Speaking of Apple, KGI analyst projects that the 2018 iPhone will have faster pre-5G baseband chips, with 70 to 80% of them from Intel and the rest from Qualcomm. Fast Company reports that Apple's working with Intel to incorporate 5G modems in future versions of the iPhone. Now, Qualcomm has a more advanced 5G modem. However, as we've discussed here on DTNS, Apple has been reducing its use of Qualcomm parts, and the two companies are engaged in several lawsuits over licensing fees.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of reports out there that Apple is designing its own baseband modems too, that it might be working with Microtech, but they are definitely playing hardball with Qualcomm right now. KGI is pretty reliable in these sorts of projections. I'm not sure about Fast Company's sources, but it does seem to fit the facts. Here's the thing: if Apple does successfully move away from using more Qualcomm parts, how bad does this hurt Qualcomm? I mean, granted, the majority of phones sold are Android, and the majority of Android phones are still going to use the Qualcomm parts, so it's not going to torpedo them, but it's going to hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good for the Qualcomm. US FCC voted to overhaul the Lifeline plan. That's the plan that gives $9.25 a month discount on phone or internet service to households who are at or near the poverty line. Households on tribal lands can receive an additional $25 a month, but the overhaul will limit the tribal land's discount to rural areas. If you're in an urban area of a tribal land, you wouldn't get it anymore. The idea the FCC says is that you have access to more options if you're not in a rural area. FCC is also proposing limiting the discounts to owned and operated ISPs. That means the more affordable services, the MVNOs, the Cricket Wirelesses of the world, would not qualify. You couldn't get a subsidy. You could only get a subsidy with the big ones, AT&T, T-Mobile, etc. That is a proposal for the most of the U.S. It is already in effect for tribal lands. So not only do you have to be in a rural area, but you can't use Metro PCS or Cricket or Virgin. You're going to be limited in your choice. In light of the GAO findings that the Lifeline program is losing money to fraud, the FCC is also considering putting a hard spending cap on the entire program anyway, and just saying if the program ends up spending more than this amount, we'll just stop subsidizing everybody.
What kind of fraud are we talking about?
People deceiving the program into thinking they deserve the subsidy.
Got it.
Which, yeah, it's hard to know how much of that fraud is really happening. To me, this just sounds catastrophic for people who are in remote areas who probably are among the people who need this most, who need access to information. They're out, far away from places where there's a lot of people. People who are on tribal lands absolutely need this kind of information. And so it's really seems like an incredibly short-sighted thing for the FCC to be doing, and the idea, what Ajit Pai and his cronies at FCC have said is that, well, but if we free up this money, what this means is that, these big companies like, say, Comcast will be motivated to build out more fiber into these remote areas because, they won't have to rely on subsidies. And that doesn't even make any sense. There's what's the motivation for a huge company to build out fiber to a remote area? I just don't understand the economics that they're suggesting at all.
No, I agree with you. The math doesn't work out. If you're saying one of the reasons you're not building fiber to the rural areas is not enough demand, taking the subsidy away from urban residents that already have access to more choices doesn't increase the motivation to go build out fiber into the rural areas. And the other thing they said was, if we limit the subsidies to only going to the people who build infrastructure, then they'll be more likely to build infrastructure in more places, which I could see that at least on paper that could work out a little more like, okay, if they're getting more money in because you're forcing customers to choose them, then that might help them build it out. But again, I don't think this program is big enough to really move that needle.
It's not going to move that needle, and it's ultimately going to mean that people who are in these already underserved areas have even fewer choices, which is,
and the cheaper choices. Generally, the MVNOs, the ones that are being considered to be kicked out of the program, are the ones that don't cost as much. $9.25 might get you an actual full plan on an MVNO, where it's definitely not on AT&T or even T-Mobile.
Yeah, I mean, it actually sounds like a pretty naked scheme just to bring money into the really big ISPs, and so and into the really big cable companies and things like that. So, that's a little depressing.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that you need to cut costs places. This just doesn't seem like a very smart way to do it.
Yeah.
Some news coming right around the time we shot the show yesterday. Mashable has sold to Ziff Davis.
What?
Yeah, for $50 million. This is coming from the Wall Street Journal, citing anonymous sources. Now, not more than just a drop in the bucket, $50 million, but it's 20% of Mashable's valuation of $250 million, which was following a $15 million round of funding last year led by Time Warner. So at least on paper, you could see this as perhaps a bit of a fire sale. Back in September, the Wall Street Journal reported that the company had held extensive discussions with another company, ProSiebensat.1, about a sale as well. So Mashable has been shopping itself around for some time. That's not a huge secret, but Ziff Davis, Tom?
Yeah. So yeah, we're not getting any comments from Ziff and Mashable on this, but it's definite that there's a sale. The 50 million price is the part we're not sure. That's what the sources are telling us. But even if it's a slightly more than 50 million, I mean, it had to be a lot more for 50 million for this to make any sense. To me, it really does feel like a fire sale if that's the actual price. And beyond that, I'm just kind of pleasantly shocked that Ziff Davis, who, you know, I was at ZDTV when SoftBank decided to just dismember Ziff Davis and sell it off in pieces to a bunch of different people. And the magazine's portion is what this Ziff Davis is the, you know, the descendant of, was about to go under. Roger, you worked for Ziff Davis, you know, when they were struggling to just sort of continue to be in existence, and it didn't look good. And now they've actually turned it around to the point that they can pick up Mashable, maybe at a bargain, but they can buy another company.
I thought they were still working under the terms of, you know, what they settled with on the debtors in terms of, you know, renegotiating all their debt. So, I mean, to be honest, this is like a 180 surprise. Like, oh, Ziff of all people, because it was. I mean, I was back when I was over at DLTV and Cranky Geeks. That I was at Ziff, and it was just like, you know, everything was like, well, don't use too many of those, you know, binder clips. There's only so many. There's only so many to go around. I mean, like, it was like, you know, there was that feeling.
See, that's what happens if you're really smart about binder clips. Eventually, you have enough money to buy a Mashable.
Eventually, you can subsidize some kind of build out of the information infrastructure. No, but you know, Ziff has been looking around for some kind of hit brand for a while. You know, like there were rumors that they were in the running to buy Gawker Media when that was up for sale, and that didn't work out. And so I think they must have just figured, you know, why not go one floor up in the same building and buy Mashable? So they literally are in the same building. So Gawker Media is sort of below Mashable.
Yeah. They're all kind of all in the little area right there in New York too. You know, I do think that this is the end of an era. I guess if anybody can turn Mashable around, it's Ziff Davis, since they've done it with PC Mag and places like that. But Sarah, I mean, Mashable used to be on top of the world covering this stuff.
Well, and you know, valuation numbers are, you know, they're conceptual oftentimes, but it's so much lower than, you know, a $250 million valuation of just a year ago, which makes me think, okay, well, what was Mashable doing differently as of late? And we talked about this a little bit yesterday. I guess it was in the post show. That was video. And Mashable was doing a lot of video and doing it quite well. And I think that's such a unproven model for a lot of entities at this point. And it leads me to believe that it wasn't as lucrative, you know, even given crazy numbers on Facebook, that sort of thing, for a company like Mashable. And I wonder how this will sort of be a domino effect for other publications that you would consider to be competitors.
Well, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. We got a nice little shout out in the Amazon Echo daily email as the most requested flash briefing. So thank you for that. Thank you for all the requests, which, of course, you can get Daily Tech Headlines on the Amazon Echo. You can get it at Google Home. You can get it in the Anchor app, and just as a regular old podcast at dailytechheadlines.com. All right, so let's talk encryption and the law. Now, last Friday, we were talking about Rosenstein's comments where he was being very nice and saying, look, I understand that weakening encryption weakens it for everybody. I understand the need for strong encryption to fight fraud, saying all the right things, but then, as Darren and I talked about at the end, flipping it and saying, but we have to compromise. I've been thinking about this a lot. used to be a power imbalance, right? So the feds felt like they could go to the phone company and say, hey, we need a pen register, we need a wiretap. It was something that the feds could do with the phone company because only the phone company could do it. The average person couldn't do it. Encryption today is very egalitarian. It's frustrating to law enforcement because there is no power imbalance. Everybody can have strong encryption. So one approach law enforcement has taken is to try to argue that we should restore a power imbalance by advocating something like a backdoor. However, that's a myth. The idea that if I have a backdoor key to your encryption, I now have this power imbalance back doesn't work because you don't control the key. If you put a backdoor in, you basically put a backdoor in for everybody. So a more natural power imbalance would be computing power. And it feels like that's kind of where the feds are reluctantly going to, getting enough expertise or enough research agency help or enough computing power to just crack encryption on these phones. And keep in mind, it's not just terrorists. We're also talking about just general fraud and abuse where you're like, you know what, this person was bribing someone. If we could get into their phone, we could show that in a court of law. But the problem with that approach, if you don't have the back door, which sounds really easy and cheap, is that this other approach is costly. So to my mind, Annalee, this all starts to feel like it's about cost and either who pays or not wanting to pay.
It's definitely a huge issue. And earlier this week at Ars Technica Live, our guest was Rhianna Pfefferkorn, who is the cryptography fellow at Stanford's Center for Internet and Society. And she's spent a number of years just researching how cryptography and the law intersect and sort of what the latest developments are. And one of the things that's interesting is that in the wake of a landmark case, which was Apple versus FBI a few years ago, when, as you recall, in San Bernardino, there was a shooting and the feds wanted access to the iPhone that belonged to the shooter. And they went to Apple. They actually made some mistakes. It's a really complicated case technically, but they made some mistakes where they basically couldn't get into the guy's phone, even though they probably should have been able to. And so then they went to Apple and they said, look, we need you to give us the password. We need you to give us all this other kind of access. And Tim Cook, speaking for Apple, said, no, we can't do that now with iOS 8. There's all these reasons why that's not going to be possible unless we were to leave this backdoor that you've been talking about, in the underlying code that is in all phones. Now, the feds would love to have that. And basically that case did not wind up creating any good case law, according to Rhianna and other legal scholars, because of course it just wound up getting sort of solved outside of court. The feds got that data without access to the phone. So we haven't decided that question yet, but Apple did stand up to them. But so in the wake of that case, both the DOJ and the FBI have allocated tens of millions of dollars to what they call the going dark problem, as if this is a new thing, right? That suddenly we have all this terrible crypto. We used to have all this light, but now because of encryption, it's gone dark. We need to put a ton of money into it. And so as a result, instead of going to a company like Apple and saying, give us the keys and being relatively transparent about it, and doing this in court, instead, the FBI, for example, is hiring third-party companies to extract data from devices. And so there was actually a really interesting case earlier this year that my colleague Cyrus Farivar wrote about on Ars Technica, where it was a sextortion case in Florida, and a minor celebrity was getting sextorted. I don't know if that's the verb form of that.
I totally get what it means, though. So
right.
Yeah,
so
sure.
They wanted to get some data off the sextorter's phone. And instead of going to, and it was an iPhone, and instead of going to Apple, they just hired an outside forensics company, an Israeli company, who managed to extract the data from the phone. And the money for hiring that company, came from an FBI fund, a going dark fund. And for 2018, the FBI has asked the government to allocate $21 million to this fund. So their idea is they're going to continue funding this kind of thing, so that what's really, and I would say, like, the final thing I would say is what's really interesting is that not only are we seeing the DOJ and the feds funding the creation of new tools for extracting data from encrypted devices, but at the same time, we have Rosenstein asking that we have some kind of legislation or some kind of backdoor agreement in Silicon Valley that would allow law enforcement to have access to encrypted devices, to basically create crippled encryption that would allow law enforcement to gain access, as you were saying earlier. So if Rosenstein got his way and we had legislation or some agreement, we would also still have these funds. So you'd have these going dark funds, millions and millions of dollars going toward law enforcement finding vulnerabilities, as well as having weakened encryption. So that imbalance would be it would just be huge. You know, it would be, not only is your phone's encryption so crappy that you're vulnerable to petty criminals, but also the feds are working on ways of finding new vulnerabilities in all kinds of other devices with this money that they've gotten. So we're kind of at the dawn of what might be a new crypto war, basically.
Yeah, it felt like after after James Comey backed off with Apple that this might be put to rest, because we had the Capitol Hill testimony, and my own representative Karen Bass won my heart by asking questions actually about encryption during that testimony that showed she had actually understood everything, and it felt like, okay, we finally put this to rest. But it's a zombie. It keeps getting back up, and Rod Rosenstein is trying to revive it by being more reasonable. I mean, talk about a good manager. If I'm in a department where the manager says, look, we're going to try to get a budget in case it goes this way, and we're going to keep that budget even if it goes the other way, like, hey, that's good management. It might not be good for our human rights. And honestly, as costly as it is, I think going after the problem that way, with maybe, you know, some eye towards efficiency, is the better way to go. Old spycraft where you eavesdrop on people, the kind of technology that can capture keystrokes at a distance so that you're spying on somebody while they're typing their text messages and maybe can figure out what they're typing. Those things are possible, and they don't violate anyone else's human rights, and they don't weaken encryption for the law-abiding citizens.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it is perfectly legal for them to have that money allocated however they want. I think having legislation that weakens our crypto, I mean, it's bad for the nation because no other nation is doing this. So that means that we leave ourselves vulnerable to all kinds of criminals. It's not just leaving us vulnerable to legitimate investigations by law enforcement. So I think that, I mean, it's interesting because one of the things that we talked about at Ars Live was how this metaphor of going dark is so misleading, because it makes it seem like there was some time before the rise of digital communications and encryption when it was very easy for law enforcement to do their job. But as any lawyer will tell you, tapping a phone in the 80s or in the 70s was a very different thing than opening up a phone that someone's carrying around in their pocket, you know, in 2017, because tapping a phone means, okay, you listen to their conversations. You don't have access to all of their photos, all of the locations that they've been for the entire life of the phone, every single one of their contacts, every message they've exchanged, every letter they've written. And that's what you're looking at when you get someone's iPhone or their Android device or whatever the hell they're carrying, some kind of weird BlackBerry thing. And they, you know, law enforcement wants access to that. And so things have really changed when we talk about going dark. What we're really saying is, you know, they're trying to claim that there's some kind of similarity between what law enforcement would have gotten before encryption and after it, and there really isn't. You can't compare a trap and trace order to somebody extracting data from a phone. It's just completely different.
It's a jackpot that they want. It's not that it's something that used to be in the light.
And also, like, if you were trying to get that information from someone in the 1970s, like if you, for some reason, wanted all their photos and all their location data, you would have had to get a search warrant to go into their house to look at their photos. You would have had to have gotten, you know, a warrant to track them, to actually follow them around. So it's really comparing not just like apples and oranges, but it's like comparing a Vax and an iPhone or something like that.
Apples and hollandaise sauce.
Exactly.
Thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit and helps us keep track of these sorts of stories. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com, facebook.com/group/dailytechnewsshow. And that video with Rihanna Pfefferkorn, is coming out when?
That should be out next Wednesday. So if you go to the Ars Technica Live page, or if you just go to Ars Technica on Wednesday, we'll post the video and you can see the full conversation with Rihanna. It was incredibly interesting, and we got great questions from the audience too. So, and hey, if you're in Oakland, come out to our next Ars Technica Live in February.
Excellent. Let's see what's in the mailbag, Sarah.
Brian from Atlanta writes in, this is regarding a discussion yesterday about Twitter pausing people's verification. Brian says that they're kind of avoiding an obvious solution they might want to borrow from the social network Nextdoor. Nextdoor, if you're familiar, is a social network based on people that live physically nearby. Nextdoor requires address verification before users can even participate on the service, and they limit users to interacting with people in their neighborhood. So Twitter could easily use a model like this for verification, changing the rules to make any unverified account private, and then require a user to verify their address using a postcard sent to their physical address. Then they could essentially end anonymous and spam accounts. If you want to take it a step further, they could work with governments to provide automatic verification using address and government-issued ID numbers. Obviously, they'd need to ensure that the information is just used for verification, not anything else, not stored anywhere. But forcing unverified accounts to be private by default would send a much clearer message. Then Brian says, to make it easier for a celebrity, say, or somebody that's followed by a lot of people, you could provide an option for all users that would block notifications from accounts under a selected follower threshold.
Yeah, I mean, he's not saying you'd have to do this to use Twitter. He's saying you want to be verified? Then here's what you do. And that's up to you.
When I signed up for Nextdoor some years ago back in San Francisco, I remember the whole postcard thing. I remember being like, well, this is a little bit cumbersome, but it worked pretty well. And the thing with Nextdoor is it really is based on, hey, am I actually this person's physical neighbor? I have to somehow prove that I'm in
and
this
that's why they
zip code.
Keep you from using the service unless you do that. Yeah.
Right. But I don't know. There's some privacy implications here on Twitter. I could see where a lot of people are like, no, you're not gonna.
Well, then you don't get verified. I mean,
mailbox.
I don't know. It's if it's optional, it bothers me less. I guess that's the way I look at it.
Right.
Hey, folks, just a reminder, Len Peralta's not here again right now this week because he's got so much going on. One of the things he's got going on is shipping those DTNS Last Jedi mashup posters. You can order them now. All the slots are gone for the people who got their names on it, but you can have a copy for yourself. It's $20 for a print. It's a mashup poster with myself, Roger, and Sarah Lane. You can also order custom-drawn holiday cards or even one of the many prints that he's done for DTNS since the inception of the show. Head on over there now, lenperaltastore.com. Len wanted us to let you know he's still got all that stuff going on, even if he's not here. He'll be back with us soon. Thank you, Annalee Newitz, for joining us. Besides ArsTechnica.com, you're also got a novel out called Autonomous.
I do. Here, wait, let me show you. Oh, yeah, you got it up there. Yeah, so just came out. It's about robots and a pharmaceutical pirate in the future. And check it out. Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking around earlier for my copy so that I could show it and then realized that I bought it on Kindle.
Wait, here it is.
That's
I've got one right here. I'm just going to leave it like this.
Perfect. Yeah. The book is called Autonomous. Go check it out. We had a lovely interview with Annalee on Sword and Laser a while back if you want to check that out as well.
You should. They asked great questions.
Oh, thanks.
We steal all
of our questions from our audience. That's why they're so good. Hey, we currently have 4 more patrons than we had last month, and our goal is always to do better than last month. But how much better? You decide. Get early access to DTNS Labs, exclusive columns, bonus episodes, and more at patreon.com/DTNS.
If you want to get a hold of us, our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 2130 UTC at alphageekradio.com and also diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com.
Back with you on Monday with Dr. Kiki from This Week in Science. Talk to you then.
show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Hey, good show.
Excellent.
Great.
Yay! You guys are all rad.
Aw, you are too.
You are too, Annalee.
I'm not
And
even.
congrats on the book, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm super happy to have it done, and now my publisher just wants more.
You even got a quote from Neil Stevenson on it. That's great.
I know, that was super nice of Neil. He didn't even make me buy him.
He didn't make you do any sword fights with him for it or anything.
I wish that would have been awesome. Yeah, no, I have yet to see his foundry in his basement, but I hope one day to level up.
So if you head over to showbot.tv, you can find all the titles. Top of the list is No Rest for the Encrypted, followed by FCC Cuts the Lifeline for the Poor. Ziff Davis buys Mashable with binder clip savings possible. Freaking Fat Cats cuts off poor life. Ziff Davis is so Mashable. Egalitarian encryption frustrates feds. It's a mouthful. Crippled encryption. EA leaves the dark side of the loot boxes.
Poor EA.
I know.
Software forensics.
I mean,
the new gumshoes.
If they hadn't done it so many times, I'd feel really bad for them.
I love that they now have the most hated comment on Reddit. I love that whole story cycle where it was just like, "We hate you, EA."
Everyone wants the back door more than the front door. The back door still needs, period. The key to justice. Kind of reminds me of that episode of The Simpsons where Chief Wiggum has the key to everything in Springfield, and Ralph Wiggum and Bart steal and they go to town. So that's what we have so far.
I like No Rest for the Encrypted.
I like that
That's a good
too.
one.
That's
Cool.
That's got my vote.
It's popular among hosts and audience.
Critics agree.
It's the tomato meter and the whatever they call the thing that is the popular sentiment. I don't know if they have a name for that.
Popular sentiment. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
TM.
That works. That works. Wait, so what were we talking about when we were interrupted by having to do this show?
Hollandaise sauce and food we ate as college.
No, but there was something that you stopped us, Roger, because it was time to do the show.
Something about ramen. Was it ramen two for $1?
Yeah, I think we delved super deeply into how cheap food can get.
Right.
I remember, when 50-cent meal was a thing that was very important to me, and you can still do it in some places. So
yeah, it's harder than it used to be, but
yeah.
It was also quipping on how are people still alive considering their diet is high in salt, sodium, fat, saturated fat, all this stuff.
It's going to turn out that all that stuff is really good for us. And the only reason why we're having health problems is because of weird toxins in the atmosphere and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, actually,
totally unrelated.
Yeah, exactly. Well, related, but environmental factors. And it's oh yeah, but no, it was totally fine that you were eating McDonald's all the time. It was just all those carbon emissions that was really killing people. So yeah.
It was the exhaust in the parking lot of the McDonald's that was hurting
exactly.
you. Not the hamburger.
Wrong with consuming McDonald's products. That part's fine.
That is totally fine. Yeah. Factory farming also totally fine. Yeah, that turned out to be.
I mean, I'm not super proud of this, but I tweeted about it actually. I hadn't eaten McDonald's for quite a number of years, and I was a vegetarian for a long time. But even after kind of going back to the dark side, I still wasn't eating McDonald's. But I had a 12-piece chicken McNugget meal a couple Fridays ago. In fact, 2 Fridays from today. And it was so good. And I want it again.
It's
Chicken
how they
nuggets
hook
are
you.
great, like they're pretty, it's hard to deny.
And I
And
know
they
they're
just changed the
trying to be
ingredients.
so good that you just can't it was a mistake to even eat them in the first place, but they were delicious.
They just changed the ingredients too, so that it's just the vegetable oil they fry them in, which I think is like corn oil, but which isn't great. I could be wrong about that. And
I mean, there's no way they're good for me.
It's just breading and chicken now.
No,
They took out all of the
Deep-fried,
weird
so
stuff.
It's bad for you, yeah.
It was a delightful meal.
But it's something about the form factor, right? Because it's kind of like the tater tot of meat. It's that small, crunchy kind of globular.
It's a comforting finger food.
I've always wondered if it had something to do with our ancestors chomping on animal bones, and you get like the soft marrow in the middle. So you like the crunchy outside.
So this is like the evolutionary psychology theory of tots.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
basically,
nuggets.
you get like a crispy outside and a spongy inside.
Yeah,
it literally
I don't know.
saved the chicken industry too, because they're like, "What are we going to do with all these leftover parts?" Well, we'll just chop them up and cram them together. And there you go.
That's the part about nuggets that makes me sad, is thinking about what's really in them. That's why I love those. They're these great like vegetarian like chicken nuggets. Morning Star, because they taste exactly the same, but you know that there's no like fingernails in there or like weird like chicken butt or whatever. Not that chicken butt is bad. I just don't know if I want to eat it.
Or just
on
meat,
the other hand, though,
right?
that Morningstar stuff has all kinds of other crazy things in it.
Does it? Like plastic and
I mean, the stuff they have to do to make it feel like it's meat is like they're doing really nasty things to soy.
Really?
Yeah.
I would love to know more, because I feel like it really is just like meat.
They probably make like a paper mache chicken, and then they just chop
and
it up.
slaughter it. Yeah, no, they're torturing paper mache. It's like
No, there's something about textured soy protein that like changes the chemical makeup of it.
Well,
I
soy
can't remember now.
Soy in general is
no.
for human.
Soy in general is actually not good for you unless
Don't tell me that.
No, soy.
Especially women, Annalee. Especially women.
Man, this is like, you guys are really.
You need to. I mean, really, if you like soy, the really only nutritious form is like tofu, because when it
tofu is my main soy outlet. Although edamame,
But the thing is, like, when you eat edamame, your body actually can't break down soy all the way, and that's why.
That explains something about.
It's the same way. Yeah. It's like, you know how like Central Americans and Mesoamericans created masa, where they would take the cornmeal mush and then they would soak it in lime water.
That's right.
That would actually break down,
mm-hmm.
and that actually makes it more nutritious, as opposed to just eating corn straight off the cob, which you get some nutrition, but you miss out on like 70%.
It's garbage. And like you said, Mesoamericans, they would eat corn with beans and squash. Like, you wouldn't just eat corn by itself.
Right.
So you were able to, ingest chemicals that would help you break down the corn. Corn is really yummy though, so it's hard to break that habit. That's why everybody all across the Americas worshipped the corn god,
Yeah.
So we still kind of do, I guess.
Corn tortilla chips. Who could live without those?
Yeah, exactly. That's how I
crispy
worship
tacos. Come
corn god.
on. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a chicken or egg thing. Is it because we love
it's a corn thing.
so much? Is it because
the
we
nuggets
love corn?
was a chicken?
No, wait. Is it because we like corn because we actually do like corn, or is it because we subsidize it so there's everyone and their mother grows corn?
No.
Roger, we like corn.
We like corn.
Yeah.
You're trying to pull a separate criticism into this. There's no doubt that people like corn.
Corn is tasty, and ever since people kind of discovered they could eat corn, they've been domesticating it and like I said, worshiping it.
I agree though that it is overused because of the subsidies.
Yeah. No, it's
what's the corn?
I actually don't like an ear of corn. I'm not into that, but I like corn.
That's because you're not from Illinois.
Yeah, I like corn tortillas. The thing I don't like about an ear of corn is that it gets in my teeth. Like, I don't know how to eat it in a way that is like. I
don't think it tastes bad. I just never want.
I don't want to be like jamming my teeth into like little pointy things that are going to get.
You
in my
shouldn't
gum
have to
and,
have dental floss after.
That's a fair point. I remember growing up, I would always shave the corn off the cob and eat it off my plate, and my parents would make fun of me. they're like, "Why are you doing that?" I was like, "Because I don't want to get it stuck in my teeth."
And then at that point, did they say, "Yeah, he's going to move to California"?
They should have known.
Not a good Midwesterner.
They should have known. But the corn in Illinois is so much tastier than in the Midwest in general than elsewhere.
I bet.
I mean, isn't it the same corn? I mean, where does our corn come from? Isn't it from the Midwest?
No, because you can grow it in your backyard. Like, it's just better than what you buy in the store.
There are some things in the Midwest that are better than here, Roger.
Like
my mom.
What's true? You don't have you
It's a
don't
cheap
have
shot.
your selection of mothers is very narrow.
It's very limited.
Actually, no. What was the one thing? No, actually, Annalee, you told me about this, and I still haven't hankering to try it. Is the pizza with the mac and cheese pizza?
Oh yeah! Oh my God, that's in Wisconsin. But I mean, you can get that throughout the Midwest. You can get potato on pizza. You can get mac cheese on pizza. But there's this one place in Madison, Wisconsin, that has breakfast pizza. It has the mac cheese pizza. It has like Alfredo noodle pizza. It's basically like designed for me because I like noodles and bread. Rarely do I have them smushed together with delicious melted cheese on them. So
it's fat and carbohydrates.
It's just everything, and the texture, and it sounds wrong, but it's so good. So I recommend it.
Like noodles or just Alfredo sauce?
Noodles and Alfredo sauce.
So how do you eat it without you stringing out the noodles?
The noodles are not. It's not like spaghetti. It's like little bow ties in this case.
Oh,
they're like sort of self-contained noodles. So I mean, same like with the mac cheese, So and also the noodles are quite soft, so you can bite through them. It's not.
This is the problem with shrimp pizza that I've had, where they leave the tails on the shrimp on the pizza, and I'm like,
what? No,
what are you doing? Like this is not accessible. Like.
Yeah, no.
So hold on. In Taiwan, they sell a pizza with the whole wok fried shrimp on top. You're supposed to eat the whole thing.
That's different. You're supposed to eat the whole thing. That's
and
like
also it's like if it's wok fried, it's
pepper,
super crunchy.
Yeah.
It's not like it's just like, oh, we left the tail on. It's all soft, but the tail is this like weird kind of like it's gonna stick in your throat, and it's.
I mean, what's the idea behind that? That it looks cool?
I guess, or it proves this is a real shrimp.
I don't.
Fancier with
a
tail.
pizza. You want everything on the pizza to be edible.
Yeah, I don't want to have to pull anything off.
Of it?
What are you gonna give me, a chicken pizza with bones in it next? Like,
no, thank you.
No, they'll give you chicken wing pizza.
Some crab
that
on
is next though. Yeah, crab pizza. I like the idea of like a whole crab.
Everybody put your bibs on. It's crab pizza time.
I would actually try that.
Hey, I wonder if anyone's done a lobster roll pizza.
Lobster roll pizza.
Why not just eat a
great idea.
We don't have to complicate these things.
Wow, yeah, I don't know.
I'm with Roger on this one.
Food, Roger. That's what they eat in the good place.
Wait a minute. So here's let me see. Lobster.
I was just watching that last
pizza.
night.
Not really a lobster roll, but
I'm sure there's lobster pizza. People put everything on pizza. I disagree with everything about this pizza.
Pretty regularly, so
that's a salad pizza. I don't even understand that pizza.
That's just a veggie pizza.
That is just literally a piece of bread with salad on it, which is fine. Again.
Oh, there's no tomato sauce or cheese or anything?
No. Roger, bring that picture up again. It's very important.
I wasn't looking at the screen. Sorry.
Oh wait a minute. Here's this guy.
Oh, now you're just confusing things.
Right.
Whoa. So yeah, it's
a
piece of bread
with the salad on it. You're right.
Salad and like some, which actually I might eat that. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, it's kind of yummy.
It's really just
That's not a pizza anymore. That's a different. That needs a different name. That's
focaccia with like.
That's
salad.
A sandwich.
Yeah, it's an open-faced sandwich. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Well, actually, one thing I totally miss about not being in San Francisco anymore is I used to order Indian pizza, and they would have like a chicken tiki masala pizza, which was fantastic.
I really want to try that. I have never had Indian pizza despite living in San Francisco all this time, and my housemates' kids, when we all have dinner together, like their kids always want either Indian food or pizza, and I keep threatening to just get Indian pizza because then everyone will be happy.
We bought it because we were like, well, we're getting Indian food from the place. We might as well try the pizza because we've been like buying from them for like the past 2 months. And it was really good. Like, I was just expecting Domino's pizza with like, butter chicken on top or something. It was really good. It was like incredible. Like, wow. I was like, these guys should just be doing pizza, but
they do. You're talking about Zante's Pizza, right?
I think so.
Famed Indian pizza. Okay. Well, I'm going to get Indian pizza. I'll send you an email and let you know how it goes.
I have survived
to keep you up to date on my really important doings. Indian pizza achievement unlocked.
What's the verdict?
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure it'll be good. So are you guys just like not watching Star Trek Discovery? I begged Roger to talk about it.
No. I watched it. I like it. I really like it. I didn't think I would like it. I thought originally, and this goes back to a discussion Tom and I had about like going in different directions with Star Trek, and I brought up like, well, maybe if they went with the darker, edgier Star Trek, like even darker than Deep Space Nine, it's like that wouldn't be Star Trek anymore, right? That would be a totally different show.
That would be Battlestar.
And I watched Star Trek Discovery, and it's like, you know what? It doesn't feel like Star Trek, but at the same time, it still feels like Star Trek. And
no, I'm watching Orville and Discovery, and I'm enjoying them both because when I watch Orville, I feel like I'm watching Star Trek, but because it's got comedy, I don't feel like it's a tired version of it. Mm-hmm. Whereas when I'm watching Discovery, I feel like I'm watching really good sci-fi that sort of occasionally reminds me, oh, right, and this is in the Star Trek universe.
Yeah, I have to agree that it doesn't have the utopian flavor of Star Trek. I mean, it has a sense of, you can imagine the utopian Star Trek maybe growing out of this scenario, which is of course the whole point.
Right.
But it is so dark, and especially the sort of mid-season finale, which is such a dumb idea that we have mid-season finales. But it left us in a very dark place last week. So
true.
And that's part of it. It's like, I think what's so great about it is without the contrast, it would all feel the same, which is kind of one of the major complaints I had with Voyager. It's like, kind of feels all the same. I get it. You guys are stuck on the other side of the universe. There's the whole episode where the other Federation ship was using those alien organisms as a power source.
Yeah, I was just talking.
I really like that episode because there's that taste of desperation. It's like, oh, we're really desperate to get the heck out of here.
And Janeway is like, no, we would never do that. And actually that exact same scenario came up in Discovery because they're torturing the macro tardigrade to get around. Yeah. And Burnham is like, no, we're not going to do that. Whereas Lorca's like, hell yeah, we're going to torture the tardigrade. Like, who cares?
Whatever it takes.
Yeah, exactly. And then the tardigrade
I think you need that because if without, I mean, to be honest, without conflict, it's not a very interesting show.
Yeah.
But that was always the genius of Next Generation is they had to be inventive about how to find the conflict, and that made for some crazy good episodes.
It really did, yeah. And I wish that we could have that. I wish that it didn't have to be just all this kind of dark, internal conflict. But I'm still happy to have some actual legit Star Trek on the air. I haven't watched the Orville yet. Everyone keeps telling me I need to, but I don't know.
I still have to force myself to watch that show. Just because it's Seth MacFarlane, so every time I see it, I expect to see half a dozen Family Guy gags roll in.
But you don't.
Yeah, I just don't like watching that guy. Like, he's not. I don't like him as a live action guy. Like, I just don't think it works for him. And I don't. I mean, that's one of the reasons I think the ratings.
Just look at Catherine Palicki.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the solution.
All right. Thanks again, everyone, for hanging out and joining us. It was Seago. Seago was the thing we were talking about.
Oh my God, Seago. I need to look that up because is it around? Can I buy it? Can I? No,
it's out of. Yeah, it's been. They stopped making it years ago.
Wait, that CeeLo. No wonder I'm getting it wrong.
It was like in the 60s.
But Wikipedia. It was a diet drink.
Yep. It was one of the first.
It's a meal replacement drink. Wow. So your dad worked on like an early version of Soylent.
Yeah. Seago sort of diverged into Soylent and Ensure.
Like, yeah. It sounds a lot like Ensure, like
yeah,
and stuff. So
I wouldn't be surprised.
Vigo ever made it into any of your fiction? Because it sounds a little bit science fictional.
No, it hasn't.
I feel like there should be some kind of coded reference to
There was
Seago.
also Spoon Up in the same product line, which was a meal replacement pudding.
Ooh, Spoon Up. Wow.
So 60s.
The only claim to fame like that in my family is my grandfather invented the pick-a-note, which you can't even find on Wikipedia, which was a kid's musical instrument that you could play like a little flute, and he sold them door to door in the 50s. So
nice.
If you're old, like, you know, not old, but, you know, if you were in the 50s, you know, you might remember the pick-a-note. That was my grandfather. Oh, yeah.
That's cool.
All right. Thanks again for having me.
Thanks again, everybody.
Bye.
Have a great time.
Bye.
See you next week.
See you.